Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hartford Whalers expansion franchise here on NHL 24. We ended the Year 4 regular season in the last episode as our Whalers fell just short of a playoff spot, or not really just short, but 9 points out as our Eastern Conference has just been super tough over the course of this franchise. We ended with 88 points, and looking at the Western Conference playoff picture, you got the Nashville Predators making it at 38, 40, and 4 at just 80 points, so a little bit unbalanced here. Hopefully over the offseason, the scales tip a little bit more in our favor, but this is just our Year 4 conclusion episode. We're going to go through some stats, simulate the playoffs, and set up our Year 4 offseason, which we're going to embark on in the next episode. But to start, we're just going to look at our stats here. Mark Scheifele, again, led our team in points. I think all 3 seasons he's been with Hartford, he's led our team in points, 34 goals, 50 assists, with a plus-minus of plus 31. Finished just 1 point short of what he had last year. 30 goals in all 3 seasons with Hartford, so we're going to really try and bring him back over the offseason. Now at 34 years old, we signed him to a 3-year deal back in the Year 1 offseason, along with Tom Wilson, who we see here finished 3rd in our team in points with 61 at a plus 13 as well. He's under contract for 1 more season, but back-to-back 20-goal seasons, and he brings so much energy and passion to our team. Definitely going to stick probably on that 2nd or 3rd line, depending on who else we can get around him. And then there's also Filip Zadina. What a great story he's been over the course of this franchise. 2nd on the team with 69 points, tied for 2nd in goals with 28, and also 2nd with 41 assists. He reaches career highs in all 3 of those categories, in addition to plus-minus at plus 26, our expansion pick from the Detroit Red Wings. And he's pretty much just improved every season. Last year missed a handful of games, but a career high with 20 goals, and then builds on that this season with 28. I think he's also on an expiring contract, and he just always seems to have low chemistry when it comes to our team. It seems like he never really wants to re-sign, but at this point says his chemistry is amazing, so hopefully that rides into offseason negotiations, as we'll try to get him back on like a 3-year deal or something of that nature. Mangiapane eclipses 50 points again here, 28 goals, which is his highest since 2021-22 season where he had 35, but he's served as our captain over the course of this franchise. We still have him under contract for 1 more season at $5 million, so a very team-friendly contract, I'd say. And then Brock Besser, he was our big acquisition at Year 2 offseason, but he suffered a spike down the line in goals, assists, points, but that plus-minus up, you'd like to see that. But we really need to have him assert himself more on the power play. Only 1 power play goal, 4 points total, and I think our power play unit was towards the bottom of the league. And another guy here, Leo Carlsson, really need him to take a step forward next season. Only 22 years old still, though. His 4th year in the league, 51 points down from last year. But I'm expecting a big rise as he hits 23 years old. I feel like that age for these young phenoms is when they typically start to hit that next level. Brandon Montour, our big offseason acquisition, traded a 1st, a 2nd, and then some for him. He had 8 goals, 43 assists. Didn't really transform our power play like we were hoping, but still some good offensive production, a great 2-way defenseman. And those right-handed defensemen we know are just very hard to come by. And then his former teammate there from Florida, Grigory Denisenko, acquired him from Florida as we traded them Scott Law and Oliver Bjorkstrand at the deadline. He had 10 points in 20 games. And I think he is still under contract as well for 1 more season. Very cheap there at $2.2 million. Jack Roslovic, his 1st year as a member of the Whalers, 38 points. Michael Rasmussen, someone else we brought in, he had 36. So I think Roslovic will be our 3rd-line center next year. We'll see how it goes. Or actually, he was only signed on a 1-year contract. I think Rasmussen we do have next year. Maybe he'll be our 4th-line left wing, 4th-line center. We'll see how that goes. Then Provorov here, 8 goals, 20 assists. His production down from a year ago, but the plus-minus up. Andrew Peeke, his former teammate in Columbus, he joined forces with him as he signed a deal with us this past offseason. Career highs in points and plus-minus, so you like to see that for another right-handed defenseman we brought in of that defensive archetype. And we have him for 1 more season. Samuel Bolduc, 8 and 8 for 16 points. Really his first full season in the NHL, plus 22. You love to see that. He might have carved out a role on our 3rd defensive pairing for next season. Sami Maki, the number 1 overall pick from that Year 1 offseason when we won the draft lottery. His production very much down. He had 11 goals last year. We were hoping he could build on that, but just did not have the same offensive output, which really isn't his game as a 6'4", 218 defensive-minded defenseman. But still, you like to see him use that slap shot and be able to generate some offensive opportunities from the point. As we get some long-time AHL guys here in Graham Clark, who had 6 goals in 57 games, not the best production there. And then Curtis Douglas really just had him out there for that 6'9", 242 frame to fill out the lines after we really sold off a lot of our guys there at the deadline. Another guy of that nature, Gage Gonsalves. Daniil Chaika, his first 20 games of NHL experience, 6 points in 20 games, also a +5 there, had some flashes. He was the big prize from that Matt Grzelcyk trade going back to the year 1 trade deadline. And Jake Evans, what a fall from grace he had. He was one of our fan favorites here, especially going back to that year 2 season where he just tore it up there on our 4th line. But this year to start, just 5 points in 25 games. His play just really fell off, and unfortunately that's probably the last time we'll see him in a Whalers uniform. And now Yaroslav Askarov, his first year as a full-time starting goaltender after we acquired him from Nashville. He goes 31, 24, and 6 with 5 shutouts, a .910 save percentage, a .273 goals against at just 24. We have him locked up for 3 more years at just $5 million. So I think our future is very bright, especially in terms of goaltending. And Daniil Tarasov, now 28, has been solid as a backup over the course of this franchise, although most of his playing time has come this season where he's posted his only 2 career shutouts and was 10 and 15 in his spot starts backing up Askarov. So I'm not sure if we're going to particularly look to improve our backup goaltending spot. I think Tarasov is more than capable, and I think next year Askarov is going to emerge as like a 65, maybe even 70 start type of goaltender, although 70 might be pushing it a little bit, but we're just a little optimistic with our franchise goalie. So going back to stats here, we'll just look at the NHL leaders across the board as we like to do, as we'll go to entire league here. And leading in points was Nikita Kucherov at 98. So no one broke 100 points this season. I think that's probably the first time in this franchise. We have Tim Stützle tied for second there with Jack Eichel at 92 points. Jack Eichel, now a member of the Nashville Predators. I think we try to pursue him in free agency, but he goes with the Preds. 92-point season for them, 34 goals, which I think is a career high for him. I know it is not. He had 36 back in 2019-2020, but the Nashville Predators in the playoffs just barely at 80 points, and Jack Eichel going to try and lead the charge there. Claude Giroux still kicking here, now at 39 years old, back-to-back seasons in Tampa Bay, and his 91 points, that's the highest he's had since he had 102 back in 2017, 2018, actually the third most he's ever recorded in a season. So Claude Giroux aging like a fine wine here, maybe playing alongside Nikita Kucherov there for the Tampa Bay Lightning as they look to put together another playoff run. William Nylander there for Toronto. Matthew Tkachuk at 90 points. Clayton Keller really coming along in this franchise. Trevor Zegras, still a member of the Ducks, tied there with Tage Thompson. Sam Reinhart at 88 points. Lucas Raymond at 87 for Detroit. Pastrnak at 86. McDavid at 86. That must be a fall from what he had last year. 103 last year, now just 86, which might be the lowest he's ever recorded in a season, as it is going back to his first season where he only played like half the year. So a little dip there in McDavid's production, although Edmonton, I believe, strapping up for another playoff run. Cole Caulfield, Rantanen, Jesper Bratt, Austin Matthews. We'll just go by by individual stats now. And David Pastrnak, 55 goals, 10 more than Giroux and Matthews, who are behind him. Pasta just absolutely tearing it up. 44 for Tkachuk, 41 here for Jason Robertson. And here's Jyrki Kontanen. He was the first overall pick from the 2025 draft, as that was a year after we won the lottery. The Flyers scored big time with him, a franchise potential winger, and already at 19 years old, 40 goals, 73 points total. And I always compare our situation kind of to like how the Oilers, they won the lottery, they got McDavid. And then we'll say like the Islanders, they win the lottery, they get Schaefer. Or even a better comparison, the Devils, they win the lottery, they got Nico Hischier. It's like, oh, great, you get a great player like Hischier or even Matthew Schaefer, who's taken the NHL world by storm. But it's like, we could have had Connor McDavid. And in this case, I think Kontanen is the Connor McDavid, whereas our number 1 pick of Sammy Maki is kind of like a Matthew Schaefer or a Nico Hischier. Like, great player, but it's like we could have had the generational talent just 1 year away from winning a huge prize. But we'll still take what we can get. Kaprizov, Cole Caulfield, Timo Meier now with the Islanders, all at 39 goals. McDavid, Zegras, Patrick Laine at 38. Philip Forsberg, Tage Thompson, Nathan McKinnon, Kucherov, John Tavares, Patrice Bergeron now in Winnipeg, now at 41 years old, played in Arizona the past 2 seasons, started this franchise in Anaheim. As an interesting late career trajectory there for Bergeron, as now we won't look at too much more here. Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, Rantanen, Jeff Skinner on Buffalo. Go to assists real quick, as Reinhart led with 74. We have William Nylander there with 68. Adam Fox with 68, leading all defensemen in points with 74. Kucherov, 62 setups, along there with Keller. Nick Suzuki, haven't seen him yet. 60 points for him. And Braden Point led the league in points. I think back in year 2 of this franchise, he had 60 assists, 75 total points this season. Matt Barzal, we see him. Kalen Addison has really carved out a nice offensive role there in Minnesota. 57 assists, 70 points on the year. Erik Karlsson, we're starting to see some of these defensemen in the mix. Also, Brant Clark, former top 10 pick of the LA Kings. 55 assists on the season for Clark at age 24. He's going to really grow into a great defensive player there for the Kings. Martin Necas now of the Blues. I think they had a tough season there. Gustav Forsling, Rasmus Dahlin, Dougie Hamilton, Nico Hischier, a couple Devils. Also Tyler Bertuzzi, Jake Gensel go down the board here, plus minus. At plus 51, it was Aaron Ekblad, Brady Tkachuk, Gustav Forsling. So that pairing of Forsling and Ekblad did very good things there for the Panthers. We got Zibanejad, Keandre Miller, a couple Rangers up here. Then a few Maple Leafs in Nylander, Marner, Austin Matthews, Eric Cernak there of Tampa Bay, Tim Stützle, Nate Schmidt, DeBrincat, Cam Fowler still kicking here at 35 years old. Who led in penalty minutes? 107 there for Tanner Ginott. Of course, most of those coming in fighting situations. And Marcus Foligno, we traded him away at last year's deadline. He was actually involved in that Askarov trade, and he had a decent season there for the Predators. Really, they're tough guy on that team. He's going to lay the body out. He's going to fight people. So kind of rooting for Nashville as a Cinderella in this year's NHL playoffs. Game-winning goals, who we got? 12 there for Patrice Bergeron, 11 for Skinner and Pastrnak. Power play goals, 13 for Tage Thompson, as he also led with 19 power play points. Clayton Keller led with 22 power play points. Shorthanded goals, 4 for Luke Cunnin there of Tampa Bay, another guy on that team producing in his role. Face-off percentage, we got to go down to someone who actually had a lot. Looks like Claude Giroux led in face-off percentage, so like we said, just aging like a fine wine is Giroux. A couple guys here with 200 hits. JT Miller leading the way at 203, and Bertuzzi with 200 playing for Boston. And fights, we got Tanner Ginott with 19, Marcus Foligno with 14, Topi Antia with 6, a 19-year-old. He was drafted 8th overall going back to 2025, coming off a good season in Montreal, just his second year. And he posted 60 points. So it looks like Montreal, along with Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, have some good young forwards there. And he's also fighting at 5'11", 190, 6 fights for him. Surprised to see that. Bertuzzi, Mayfield, Ilya Kozhevnikov. He was drafted back in 2023. And we will just get to the goaltenders here, and then we're going to go through our run as our AHL team has made the postseason, our Poughkeepsie Panthers. So we will close out the season looking at their run as well as the NHL playoff picture as we simulate that. So Ilya Samsonov leads with 44 wins. And look at Matt Murray here, former goaltender of our Hartford Whalers. He has now spent the last season in Ottawa. Wow, so we only had him back in year 1. I didn't realize that. And he's been very good since going back to Ottawa. He played 20 games with them back in 2021-22. But for the past 3 seasons has been a very, very good starting goaltender for them. Most notably this past season, going 42, 20, and 5, 3 shutouts, 913 save percentage to 253 goals against. And where were those numbers when he was our goaltender? But Ottawa, a very good team. They've been a postseason team the past 2 or 3 seasons, and he's been a huge part of that apparently. But we're happy with what we got in Yaroslav Askarov, so I think it always works out. Or not always, but in this case it seems to have worked out for both of us. And Spencer Knight, he led with 8 shutouts. Philip Gustafsson now of the Capitals, Samsonov, UC Saros, and Thatcher Demko now of the Blackhawks with 6. And a cluster of guys here with 5. Kochetkov is still the goaltender here for Carolina. Zarenko, the goaltender for St. Louis. And Igor Shesterkin has moved on to Calgary. So Adin Hill, the goalie for the Rangers. And of course we saw here Askarov at 5 towards the top of the league. And then save percentage, Mackenzie Blackwood of Buffalo, Anton Forsberg, both backups. Marc-Andre Fleury, the backup there with the Rangers. That feels very weird to say. Kevin Lankinen has been very good as a backup over this franchise. But Kochetkov at 918 looks to have led all starting goaltenders. Adin Hill here played 70 games for the Rangers at 917, along there with Shesterkin, who went 24, 24, and 8 with the Flames as they missed the playoffs. Now goals against, Marc-Andre Fleury, Kochetkov, Adin Hill, kind of the similar names we saw. Samsonov, Caden Primo, Jacob Markstrom, now of Tampa Bay. He had a very good run with us going back to 2024-2025 after we traded for him in the offseason. Went 26-12-5 with 5 shutouts, a 9.18 and 2.49 goals against, but really fell off the following season. And now it looks like he's the backup there for Vasilevsky in Tampa Bay. John Gibson still with the Ducks. Did we get any goalie goals this season? We got one from Marc-Andre Fleury back in year 2, but none this season. And then we also had 4 assists here. Sorokin, Merzlikins, Saros, and Carter Hart leading the way there.
And as promised, we will get a little look in at our AHL affiliate, the Poughkeepsie Panthers, as they embark on a playoff run of their own. If we're not going to make it, at least they can make it. And here's Will Coyle to Damiani to Perreault, and a nice chance there off the rip from our top line. Jacob Perreault, expansion pick from the Ducks back in episode 1 of this franchise, but has spent the entire duration down here in the AHL, though we do have Will Cooley at left wing here, captain of our Panthers. He has had some time up at the NHL levels. We do get the puck off the face-off. Brzustowicz to Damiani, who turns it over as the Rochester Americans will take it the other way. That's Lindgren in on the attack. Peels off, centering pass, intercepted by Damiani, who led our team in points throughout the regular season. Over for Perreault now. Nice move into the zone. His shot blocked in front by Sierra as McBain leads the charge the other way. Poked away there at the point, and Damiani battling for it, as Will Cooley also over to offer some help as he does lay out a man there along the boards. Rochester still with it. Nadeau in front, backhand chance off the spinneroo, as that's blockered away by goaltender Arthur Seelovs, expansion pick from Vancouver back in episode 1. Here's Perreault working again towards the net. Backhand chance goes wide. Still a loose puck as Will Cooley was going for it. Oslin now for Rochester up to Zemmer. And Zemer in the neutral zone. Backhand pass for Lindgren. Up and entering the zone for Volkov as he tried to lead pass. Intercepted by Jacob Holmes in front. Fredrick Lehner for Pitlick as he has both goals for Poughkeepsie in this game. Game 1 of a 5-game series. As this one, of course, very important to see who wants to establish the first punch here. As Zemer towards the net. Loose puck. Seelovs. That almost was put in by his teammate, but Seelovs able to keep control in front as he freezes that one. So just about 5 minutes into this third period of play, tied up here 2-2, as we'll have the second line. Our right wing Fredrick Lehner, number 86, was a second-round pick back in the year 1 offseason, as it looks like he might be ready to crack the roster next year, as our guys that we drafted are finally developing a little bit. And that was Blake Jenkins with a shot, as that bounced behind Skaric, although he was able to regain possession as he freezes that one now. An offensive zone draw for Poughkeepsie to the left of the goaltender. Kyle Morey on the draw with Ali Likesell also out there, former Philadelphia Flyers draft pick. Hansel, a shot from the point that's blocked away into the corner. Forsvahal for Likesell. Back for Hansel, for Bouchard, for Likesell now. Back for Hansel. A lot of passing here. It's his slap shot again, blocked. And that deflects into the stick of a Rochester American player. Now a rush for Rochester as Mersch was hit off the puck. Poughkeepsie taking it back the other way as they have controlled the bulk of possession time so far in this third period. Likesell peels off for Hansel in front. Pad saved by the goaltender Skaric as Elliott will take it the other way. As he will enter the zone, loses possession though, or dumps it in. Not quite sure what happened there as Hansel gives to Bouchard. Hansel, a draft pick from back in episode 2, as Leo Carlson headlined that draft. We got him at number 4. And here's Bouchard, as he will give up for Laakkonen. Laakkonen, a draft pick over the course of this franchise, as well as he was denied entrance into the offensive zone as Rochester rushed the other way, saved by Seelovs as a player there kind of trips over him. And it's still tied up here, 10:57 remaining in the third period. Let's see if we can get some playoff 5-on-5 hockey. Now we have Braden Schwartz out here, left wing. He was a third-round pick back in the year 1 or year 2 offseason, I forget, as he does have possession now. The American product trying to crack this roster at some point in the coming years. And as I mentioned, it's kind of cool to see now at like year 4, some of our guys that we drafted are starting to develop, as it does take a little bit more for NHL players, whereas NFL guys, they're drafted and they're on their roster the same day. For NHL guys, it takes a little bit longer path. There's Roberts a shot, and that was saved into the corner as Rochester still with it more than halfway now through this third period as Elliott denied possession, although he does get it back to Giesewitz as he will go towards the front. Warren off the centering pass denied by Seelovs as that goes all the way down into Rochester territory as they look to assemble another rush. Brown now with it up for Giesewitz. His pass to no one as Ride will take it the other way. I think that's Bronson Ride, 6'6", 240. Defenseman in front off a really good feed. Good puck movement down there deep in the zone. And now Rochester will go back the other way. Taken from Coley as he is back with it. Good backhand pass for Damiani as Damiani still with it. And his shot pad save now for Nadeau. Poughkeepsie has dominated this third period, but very good goaltending as Rochester now a chance of their own for the Americans. Oslin in front, his shot. Really nothing doing, a weak one as he was contested. And now Damiani definitely needs to get off the ice. He is able to feed that off for Roberts, who has a rush going the other way. Roberts for Lehner, and he shoots, he scores. Fredrick Lehner with the late go-ahead goal. I mentioned he was a second-round pick back in, I think, the year 2 off-season, year 1 off-season. Now at 75 overall, and he's a very highly touted prospect. Off the feed there, I think, from Roberts as he finishes short side forehand. And Fredrick Lehner, someone that we definitely want to keep an eye on. We're going to see him in the preseason in this upcoming year 5. So he might crack the roster. If not, going to be a very highly coveted prospect on this team as Rochester does call a timeout as they try to recollect themselves. Now trailing 3-2 down the stretch of this Game 1 AHL playoff game. We're not going to watch all the action. We'll probably just simulate the next game. And now at this point, we also are through one game of the first round of the NHL playoffs. So as we go ahead there, we'll also monitor what's going on in Pitlick on hat trick watch. Can't get the shot off. Now Lehner will clean it up, and he's denied there by Skarik as he does play that one out. Thought that was kind of long. Thought a whistle might ensue, but nothing doing there as McBain will take it into the zone, peels off, and loses possession out of the zone as Rochester will recollect and intercepted. Now Fredrick Lehner going back the other way. Lehner back for Pitlick, and he's knocked off the puck as now Sira shot, and that's just saved by the blocker of Seelovs. Rochester now building some pressure, lingering some space. Back for Zemer in front as that's blocked away. Now Blade Jenkins was hit. Looks like a slashing call going to come up, so just kill the clock here. Get that extra man out there. Brzustowicz with it as he does lose possession. We really just needed to kill the clock there and try to run it down as close to the 2-minute mark as we could, but a slashing penalty there on Alexei Volkov is going to put Poughkeepsie on the power play here. Only 3:27 remaining and a 1-goal lead. Definitely a chance to add another one, get some insurance here, and win this ever-important Game 1 of this AHL Playoff Series. So Damiani on the draw. Blade Jenkins at right wing, who just drew the penalty, as Rochester wins it, but Damiani forces a turnover in front, and he gets a backhand chance, but saved by Skarik. That killed a few seconds. We'll do it again. Damiani does not win it that time, although loose puck behind the net as Coley was giving chase as that is cleared out. And Bouchard did not mean to put that into the zone as that goes for an offside. Already the third face-off on this power play as Poughkeepsie does win it that time. Hansel does enter the zone, assessing his options now in front for Jenkins as he gets a nice backhand chance in front, and that's secured by Skarik. Now the face-off this time to the right of Skarik as Rochester does win possession. Giesewitz is able to clear it out as Perreault with it over for Brzustowicz. Brzustowicz, our second-round pick back in Episode 2. We drafted Leo Carlson 4th overall, and Brzustowicz was our pick in the second round as Pitlick there trying to get number 3 for the Hattie, and denied by Skarik. Very good save there, a good rush the opposite way, and a good setup. As again, a face-off to the left here of Skarik. We got Fredrick Lehner, Pitlick, and Ali Leiksell as our forwards. Lehner with that go-ahead goal a few minutes ago. And now fighting for possession here as Rochester with it, and they will clear it. And now just 40 seconds remaining on this Poughkeepsie power play. Brzustowicz, a pass there for Lehner, backhand to Pitlick as he will lead the charge now. Pitlick on the far wing. Pass over for Brzustowicz as he tried an extra pass there. Warren intercepts it and will take it back the other way, building some steam as he's caught by Perreault. And a glove save by Seelovs. He will play that out as his power play does come to an end.
And now just 55 seconds remaining of action. Let's see if we can hang on down the stretch and secure this victory. Just killing some time here. You like to see that. Don't need to force anything, but that interception, you don't like that, as Rochester will pull the goaltender. And Kucherov now into the zone. Kucherov a shot, and that's a save for Silovs. Rebound corralled by Perreault, who's hit off the puck now for Brzustowicz. He plays it up for Damiani. Now over for Will Coley. Coley just manhandled there at center ice. I think there's 3 or 4 guys on him. Talk about a triple team, a quadruple team, as that will result in another Americans penalty. I'm not sure if I agree with the call in that stage of action, but we'll take another look at it. 4 Americans, 4 out of the 6 out there, just all over Will Coley. I always get the pronunciation wrong, but that seems to all have done it here. Poughkeepsie on another power play draw in the offensive zones. They lose it. Rochester clears as that goes astray. And now Poughkeepsie back with it. Damiani held up against the boards. Jenkins now back for Hansel up front, as that wasn't handled by, I think that was Bouchard. Now Rochester, one last rush the other way, shorthanded, and they will clear it. Dump it in. Give some chase as Heinen behind the net, as that's going to be 2-1 and done here from Poughkeepsie, as our Panthers behind 2 goals from Pitlick, a late goal there from Fredrick Lehner, and some great goaltending from Arthur Silovs, as we take game 1 in this round 1 series against the Rochester Americans, as we are going to simulate through the remainder of this playoff run. We'll get a look in, maybe depending on how far we can get, but I wanted to get at least one look in at this AHL team. We don't often hone in on them, and with our Hartford Whalers eliminated, I figured what better time than now, as we win game 1 3-2 over Rochester. And now we will take a look at the playoff tree and look at the matchups we have going on in this series. I really wish we could simulate the playoffs from this screen, but we just have to advance day by day, unfortunately. So after one day of action, Anaheim jumps up on Colorado. The Winnipeg Jets jump up on Nashville. The Rangers up 1-0 on Buffalo there in that in-state series, and then another in-state series in the Eastern Conference as Florida up 1-0 on the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the other series going on is Minnesota against Chicago, Edmonton against Calgary, as we do have the Battle of Alberta. And on the Eastern Conference side, we also have Toronto against Ottawa, so some good Canadian rivalries on each side of the bracket. And then we also have Carolina against New Jersey, as the Devils, the only team that's different from last year's Eastern Conference, as they were able to sneak in over Columbus, as the Blue Jackets just really fell down the stretch there. So we will simulate a couple games now, as we did win game 1 of our AHL series. We'll simulate a couple days, as now the Ducks up 2-0, Winnipeg up 2-0. The Oilers win game 1, Minnesota wins game 1, and in the Eastern Conference, the Lightning knotted up at 1-1. New York takes game 2 as well, so the Rangers up 2-0, and the Sens up 1-0, and the Devils up 1-0. And with that, we will now come over to our Poughkeepsie Panthers and just simulate the entirety of game 2 here against Rochester. After the first period, 1-1. Kyle Morey gets a goal. Now 2-1 Pitlick on the power play, as he nets another. And we do not hang on to win Zemer a goal with just 1 minute remaining. And let's see if we can take it in overtime, as it's going to take more than one. Now into double overtime as we fall. And Zemer, the same one who netted the late goal to tie it up, he gets the game winner in double overtime, as Rochester outshot us 47-32. But 44 saves from Silovs, as we'll take a look at the 3 stars. Just an unforgettable performance on that 45 save game. Just could not come away with it there in double OT, as that series now knotted up 1-1. And now at the NHL level, we'll simulate ahead a couple days, get an update on these series going on, as Winnipeg now at 3-0 over Nashville. And we said earlier, the Predators just barely snuck in, I think just 80 points, whereas us in the Eastern Conference, we had 88 and still were like 9 points out. Now Buffalo gets a win to put that at 2-1. Florida wins game 3, making it 2-1. And then Toronto, Ottawa tied up. Carolina, New Jersey tied up, as Edmonton up 2-0 on Calgary. And Minnesota up 2-0 on Chicago, the defending Stanley Cup champions. And now it's time for some more AHL action. Again, we'll just simulate this game quickly. Maybe if we force game 5, we'll take a look at that third period, as Lindgren gets Rochester up 1-0 after 1. We tied up there. Bouchard, a late goal on Skarek. So huge third period here in game 3. Which team will get the upper hand,
as we win 3-2. Pitlick with 2 third-period goals now, 5 goals in 3 games, as he's certainly the MVP so far. Silov's playing very good in net for us as we take that momentum shift in Game 3. And you see there, Jaromir Pitlick, 5 goals in 3 games, no assists. We're just sticking to goals here as we'll jump back to NHL, simulate ahead a couple days in this first round as Winnipeg a clean sweep on Nashville 4-0. Minnesota up 3-0 on Chicago. 2-2 there between Anaheim and Colorado. Florida up 3-1 on Tampa Bay. And Buffalo takes Game 3 and Game 4 to knot that series up 2-2. And Ottawa up 2-1 as well as New Jersey up 2-1. So now Game 4 of this round 1 matchup. And let's see if we can clinch it here and move on to the next round. Jaromir Pitlick, let's go for a couple more goals. As we're up 2-0 after 1, we see Fredrick Lehner. He was the hero there in Game 1. And then Will Coley nets one as well right in front. And now tied up after 2, as the Americans are not going to go down easy. We'll simulate this one kind of in not real time, but accelerate it a little bit as we're 5 minutes through. Still no scoring. And then McBain nets one for the Americans. We were up 2-0 early, and McBain another one, not even, or just over 2 minutes apart from his earlier goals. That puts them up 4-2 now. And we have some ground to make up here, but Jacob Perreault gets one with 3 minutes left. Too little too late, as it is, as we fall 4-3. I think every game now in this series has been decided by 1 goal or less, as Pitlick did have 2 assists in that game, but it's going to come down to the deciding Game 5, so I think we might jump into that one at some point and see if we can survive. But for now, let's go ahead in this NHL bracket first, as Anaheim up 3-2 on Colorado, Edmonton up 3-1 on Calgary, and Winnipeg a clean sweep, as well as Minnesota, as the Wild eliminate last year's Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks. But we got to remember the Wild actually did win it themselves a year prior to that. So that was the battle of the last 2 Stanley Cup champions, as that ends in a sweep. And now Florida takes out in-state rival Tampa Bay in 5 games. Buffalo now has won their 3rd consecutive, as they now lead that series. The Devils also up 3-1 on Carolina. And Toronto, Ottawa knotted up at 2. And we're now here in Game 5, the settler here, elimination game, winner go home, as our Poughkeepsie Panthers facing a 2-goal deficit, trailing 3-1, as Jacob Perreault, a nice interception there in the neutral zone for Damiani, a quick shot, as Skarek slams the door there, a good pad save, as we need a late rally here to keep our playoff run going here for our Poughkeepsie Panthers. A very good regular season, as we were 2nd in our division. And now we need to keep it going. It looks like it seemed like we were just so close to advancing. And then before we knew it, Rochester had overwrote a 2-goal deficit and ended up winning that game in double overtime. And now Poughkeepsie need 2 goals late here, as Will Coley, the captain, loses possession for Sierra, as Rochester back the other way. Oslin now for Nadeau, as he spins away from a man back the other way into his own zone. Picked off by Coley in front, as he can't find anyone. Oslin now with it into the corner, knocked off by Perreault. Perreault now held up against the boards, loses possession. Will Coley for it with it. For Perreault in front, and Skarek flashes the leather. Perreault cannot believe what just happened. Hands on his head in disbelief. Great feed from Coley, and then Perreault just absolutely snagged there, robbed of a goal. What would have been a huge goal late to seize momentum and kind of build this comeback. And that's what he's known to do, Jacob Perreault, that sniper playing style. As now Jaromir Pitlick in on the draw, 5 goals in the series, as he will win that one. Holmes with it over for Pitlick. Now for Brzustowicz, his shot blocked. And we'll just sim ahead in the action because my cat wanted to jump up and make me lose train of thought, as Lehner towards the net. Backhand was denied. Lindgren now fighting for the Zemer with it, as he was the hero. Going back, was that Game 3, Game 4, as he netted that late one with 1 minute remaining and then scored in double OT. As Rochester, the other way, Volkov was denied by Silovs, as we hang on life support a little bit longer, and that is going to go out of play. And as I said, my cat wants nothing to do with me. I'll just be sitting here all day, nothing to do with me. But once I start recording, I get on the mic, she wants to get her 2 cents in. And now Holmes loses possession, but you got to love it. Wouldn't want it any other way. As now less than 5 minutes remaining in this series, unless we can get 2 late ones and force it overtime, as that one deflected in front. Silovs
able to snatch that one up. If we are unable, however, to keep this series going, at least that'll make the episode go a little bit quicker, as pretty much the first round of the NHL playoffs are wrapped up. So just got to simulate a little bit further as we set up the offseason for next time out. And now Elliott a chance in front through traffic as that's saved by Seelovs. And now Elliott back for Ostlund as that goes back the other way. Loose puck as Will Coley will have a chance here, but Rochester catches up. Now Coley behind the net back for Bouchard as he turns it over to Nadeau. And Nadeau all alone now. Breakaway for him in front as he's denied by Seelovs. Kind of predictable on that chance. And now Will Coley for Bouchard. Back to Coley as he gets Hansel into the zone, but he couldn't keep possession. And now just 2 minutes remaining in this game, maybe our AHL season. As McBain now with it. Bounce pass off the backboard for Nadeau over to Holden. As Rochester doing a good job just killing time at this point. And now Poughkeepsie finally able to get it. Hansel up for Perreault. Just a minute remaining now. Perreault needs to get off the ice. Super tired. And we are not looking good here in the late stages. Also Damiani deadly tired. He needs to get off the ice. As he had not even red stamina left. He had just nothing. Damiani a shot. And that's saved by Skarik. So Poughkeepsie the empty net. And also Rochester going to the penalty. As a cross check there from Nadeau. And we'll have an extra attacker plus the empty net, I think. So a little bit of 6-on-4. And that's exactly what we needed to give us a little bit bigger chance of coming back. I still don't like our odds, but never say die, especially with Jaromir Pitlick on the ice and Fredrick Lehner. We've seen them have some good moments here in this condensed looking at our AHL squad. As Lehner off the draw right in front. Pad saved from Rochester from Skarik. And now Brzustowicz still with it. Tough fight there. And now again, just 25 seconds remaining as Mersch fights for it. We just could not come to our senses there. Could not get anything going. Just lackluster on our power play. We just couldn't even get it out of our own zone. We have 3 guys against their 2 there. And still, we just can't have possession. That was Fredrick Lehner off the, I guess, ill-advised pass, I guess we'll call it. I don't even know what to say at that point. And again, my cat coming back for more, so I'm just all out of sorts here. But luckily, we're almost done with this game. As Fredrick Lehner the other way. Now, we couldn't even enter the zone there. Still on the power play, though. As Bouchard will just kick it up there. And Pitlick with it. Rochester with it. There's really nothing else to say at this point. As we're just playing a little patty cake back and forth. And with that, that will conclude our Poughkeepsie Panthers Year 4 season. As we fall here in Game 5. Very tough, bittersweet loss. We thought we had this series locked up. It was looking very good, but Skarik and the Rochester Americans had other plans, as now both of our squads are officially eliminated. But hats off to Poughkeepsie, a very, very good season there in the AHL level. Will Coley was phenomenal as our captain. Fredrick Lehner showed some major growth as well, as he's not far away from securing a spot on our NHL team. And also we're going to have a bunch more prospects coming up in the next year or two that we drafted. And as they come over from Europe, they sign from the OHL, WHL, whatever the case may be. I think our Poughkeepsie Panthers are in very good hands as we move forward. And we might have an AHL championship on the horizon here in the near future. So after that tough defeat there against the Rochester Americans, we now take a look at the first round of the NHL playoffs as that has concluded. And as we mentioned, we had Minnesota, a 4-game sweep over Chicago. Winnipeg, the same thing over Nashville, as they're going to play each other. So we're going to have Minnesota against Winnipeg. Both teams have played the minimum 4 to this point. And then in the other side, we're going to have Edmonton as they win in 5 games against Calgary, against Anaheim, as the Ducks have gotten their young team going. They defeat Colorado in 6 games. And over in the Eastern Conference, the Devils advance 4-1 over Carolina. That was a surprise there in the first round, as the Devils were the bottom seed. And then we had the Sabres win 4 straight against the Rangers, kind of, a little brother taking down the big brother. In that one, Ottawa wins 4-2 against Toronto, as they'll take on the Panthers in the second round, as the Panthers won in 5 games against Tampa Bay. So here in these conference semifinals, Devils, Sabres, Panthers, Senators, Wild, Winnipeg, and Anaheim, Edmonton. Who you got? I think it's been Western Conference winner every year so far, as it was the Oilers year 1 against Boston, then it was the Wild in year 2, and then I think last season it was Chicago over Tampa Bay. But we'll see if we get a new face this year. We still have Minnesota and Edmonton in, so we could have a repeat winner from year 1 or year 2.
And with that, we'll now go ahead a little bit and see how these series turn out. We'll just go ahead and sim to May 1st as we wrap up the month of April here, 2027. And every series is knotted up 1-1. That's exactly what we like to see, especially going back to last series. None of them were forced to go 7 games, but maybe we'll get some Game 7 drama here in the conference semifinals. Now we'll go ahead a few more days here. We'll just probably get to Game 5 or so of these series, as now both in the Western Conference knotted up at 2, and the same thing in the Eastern Conference. So we're just alternating wins here across the board, and now we'll see who takes Game 5. So Winnipeg takes Game 5 against Minnesota. Edmonton takes Game 5. As those two Canadian teams are up in their series. And in the Eastern Conference, Buffalo up on New Jersey and Ottawa up on Florida 3-2 each. And we'll see if we can get any clinchers here, as both series now in the Western Conference go in 7 games we should have known. Although Buffalo wins 4-2 against New Jersey, so they take down the Rangers, and then they take down the Devils, just going through that Metro division. But we do have a Game 7 there between Florida and Ottawa, and also 2 Game 7s in the Western Conference. As we'll keep it moving along here and see who take those Game 7. So Minnesota takes Game 7 and Anaheim takes Game 7. And then in the Eastern Conference, Florida takes Game 7 over Ottawa. So I know we already know who's in it, but we'll just get a broader look or a bigger look here at the playoff picture, as it's going to be Minnesota, Anaheim, and Florida, Buffalo, as the Sabres and Ducks, younger teams trying to prove themselves, whereas the Florida Panthers have a championship. Minnesota has a championship a couple years ago, so we'll see what entities end up getting there, as we'll sim the first few games of these conference final series, as Minnesota takes Game 1 and Florida takes Game 1. We'll just go to like May 20th or so. We do have to assign some scouting assignments, but we could just keep this going at this pace for now. I keep having to take breaks in between. For those who are familiar with the NHL scouting process in this game, it's very tedious, and it requires a lot of attention, and already our Stanley Cup final is decided, as it's those 2 younger teams I kind of talked about. As they rip through, they won in 5 games quite convincingly over their opponents. So this will be the first Stanley Cup appearance for Buffalo since 1999. So their first Stanley Cup appearance since the turn of the millennium, and Anaheim back in 2007, I believe. So 20 years for them. So 2 very long droughts broken here. A very interesting Stanley Cup matchup. So now let's go ahead and see who can turn out to be our 2027 Stanley Cup champions of this Year 4 season, as Anaheim does take Game 1. And we'll keep it going here, as they do take Game 2 as well. So the Ducks with a 2-0 advantage on the Buffalo Sabres, as we're getting to the end of May, and now a 3-0 lead on Buffalo, as it's going to take an insurmountable comeback if the Sabres want to capture this Stanley Cup championship. See if they can at least win one, and they do not. So the Anaheim Ducks have won the Year 4 Stanley Cup championship at 4-0 as they sweep the Buffalo Sabres. So overall, throughout this playoff run, they took down Colorado 4-2. They took down Edmonton in 7 games, and then it just got easier from there. 4-1 over Minnesota, and then a 4-0 clean sweep over the Buffalo Sabres, as the Western Conference now have taken all 4 Stanley Cup championships in this series so far. Now we can take a look at awards, or actually not quite yet. We got to sim ahead a little bit, and then we'll wrap up this episode by looking at the Year 4 award winners, as the Anaheim Ducks Stanley Cup champions and the Calder Cup champions, the Coachella Valley Firebirds. I'm not sure who their affiliate is. I would assume maybe a California team, maybe the Ducks. Although I don't think it's the Ducks, maybe the Kings, we'll say, as we're now here June 1st of 2027. The NHL Draft is now just a few weeks away, as we're also set for free agency here soon. So the draft is going to be on June 23rd. So we have just about 3 weeks for that, followed by the re-sign phase, and then free agency for 1 month from today will open up. But as I said, we will take a look at the award winners here from this Year 4 season, as I don't think we're going to have much hardware, but we'll see what else we got going on around the league. So, of course, the Anaheim Ducks have won the Stanley Cup championship. That's now at least 5 years in a row that the winner has come from the Western Conference. As we said, it's been all Western Conference in this franchise. And then Vegas was the last winner before we started. President's Trophy goes to the New York Rangers, even though they were tied with the Panthers, and they tied identically in record and points. But for some reason, the Rangers get the tiebreaker. Maybe it went to head-to-head after that, not quite sure, as the Ducks win the Clarence S. Campbell Bowl.
and the Buffalo Sabres win their first Prince of Wales trophy since 1999. And now going over to individual awards, Nikita Kucherov, the Art Ross Trophy, as he led the league with 98 points. He'll also get the Hart Memorial Trophy as the MVP. And then the James Norris Memorial Trophy goes to Adam Fox for the second time in the last 4 years, as he and Cale Makar have split in that span. And now another piece of hardware here for Kucherov as he gets the Lady Byng Memorial Trophy. The Calder Memorial Trophy, though, goes to Michael Misa of the Dallas Stars. The Conn Smythe goes to Trevor Zegras, now a member of the Philadelphia Flyers in present day, but has stayed the course here with Anaheim, and he now has won a Stanley Cup with the Ducks and the Conn Smythe. And the Vezina Trophy is going to Adin Hill. Shesterkin left for Calgary in free agency a couple years ago. Now Adin Hill, the goaltender there for the Rangers, as he leads the Rangers to a Vezina Trophy. To a President's Trophy, and he also gets the Vezina in the process, along with the William M. Jennings Trophy, as he and Marc-Andre Fleury made up the best goalie tandem in the league this season. The Bill Masterson Memorial Trophy goes to Bjork. The Jack Adams there for Bolig of the Devils. As I mentioned earlier, they were the only new team in the Eastern Conference playoffs this season, replacing Columbus. The Frank J. Selke Trophy goes to Patrice Bergeron, one of the many he's accumulated over the course of his career. The Ted Lindsay goes to Mark Scheifele, as he's named the NHL's most outstanding player as selected by the members of the NHL Players Association. So very high regard there for Mark Scheifele among his peers, and set to hit the free agent market. Really hoping we can get him back as a member of our Hartford Whalers. And lastly, the Maurice Richard Trophy for the most goals goes to David Pastrnak. He's won 2 of the last 3, but even last year he tied for the league lead, but for some reason they gave it to Austin Matthews instead. So with that, our Year 4 season is officially complete. We've reviewed our player stats. We've looked at league leaders. We had a little look in at our AHL Poughkeepsie Panthers squad, even though we came up short there in that exciting first round of play. But next episode, we're going to embark on our Year 4 offseason, which is highly pivotal in the development of this hockey club. I think we have a lot of pieces in place, but we also need to keep Mark Scheifele. We need to add a couple more pieces to our forwards and maybe get a stud there on the blue line to accompany the likes of Brandon Montour and Sami Maki and make it tougher for our opponents to get in on net against Yaroslav Askarov. But this is where I'm going to leave you, folks. Thank you so much for watching. The Anaheim Ducks are the Stanley Cup champions of the 2027 season, the Year 4 season of this Hartford Whalers expansion franchise. Very excited for the offseason episode next time out. If you're into these team building franchises, I highly recommend that you tune back in. We're going to make a bunch of moves. We have, I think, the 13th or 14th best odds in the lottery. Maybe it went down a little bit as we did string together a few wins there at the end of the season, but even still, should be an eventful free agency, and maybe we'll make some trades to strengthen our team as well. But as always, everybody, it's been real, and be well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.